Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer and I'm Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. Also have the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to take part in, knit-alongs and all that stuff. And this is where I sit and talk about knitting, ideally every other week, but sometimes a bit less often. And so to new viewers, hi and welcome to this knitting talk show. I hope you will enjoy hearing about me talking about my knitting adventures and all sort of things like that. I do also design knitting patterns, so there will be some stuff about that as well. And to returning viewers, hi and hello and welcome back. I'm just gonna get a few things out of the way to begin with because brain's not braining in this heat, and actually today is not so bad. Today is actually only 25 degrees, which if you live in a brick oven that is a central London house, then it feels like a lot more. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning the weather is not because this is a weather podcast, it is because I have to keep all the windows open, otherwise I will probably collapse. So there will be noises and I will try my very best not to be distracted by them, although with my track record over the past, is it 6 years now? We all know how that's gonna go, so noises will distract me. And yeah, anyway, this is about knitting. What we have to talk about today is, first of all, my knit-alongs. I do run the year-long Skeindeer Knits garment cal that will wrap up at the end of the year. All you have to do to take part is to knit any of my garment patterns during this year, and however many you make is however many entries you get. So one entry is fine, several is also fine. That's kind of how we roll with that. The more of that on the Ravelry group, and there's also a hashtag that I'll try to be good and put here, but I tend to forget, sorry about that. And I also run the Festive yolk cal that I started last Christmas and will finish next Christmas, because we do all have a, festive knitting mojo a little bit late every year, don't we? Like, we want to knit the stuff when it's Christmas, but it's too late at that point. So I thought we'd, make use of that urge and then just say that we're going to finish for next Christmas. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about that as we get into my finished objects. Because I have been knitting. I've been knitting a lot. I've been knitting more than I've been doing kind of the planning side of running Skeindeer Knits, which is interesting because this time last year I had the opposite problem. I was planning and had all these stuff ready on paper, but I didn't have enough knitting time, so I just got stressed out because my plans weren't, coming through. And now I'm doing the opposite. My planning is out the window. I don't know what paperwork or emails are anymore, but I'm getting a lot of knitting done. Can I be both of these people? That'd be great. That'd be super. But yeah. So let's start with the pullover version. This is my Festive yoke pattern. It is simply a pullover top-down colorwork yoke that I made in gorgeous La Bien-Aimée Helix yarn. Now there's also the Felix yarn. Give me strength. I'm sure the downstairs neighbors are really lovely, but they have the loudest dog and the loudest twin toddlers that squeal. And I do mean all three of them. Anyway. Love this yarn. I mean, look at this. Look at how this red pops. So the grey is undyed and the red just is so freaking red. It's so red. Have you seen this kind of red? I should have been wearing my red lipstick for this, really, but I don't know. I wasn't feeling it in the heat. I don't know what that has to do with heat, but we just, trust me on that. Anyway, it's done. It's completely done. I released these. I'm gonna catch you up, okay? I released these patterns quite prematurely because, oh my goodness, I hadn't finished in time for Christmas myself. So I actually started them spring last year, very confident that I would finish knitting both of them and have them photographed by Christmas, and I didn't because I had overplanned things, as I literally just alluded to. But I still wanted to have it out for Christmas, so I thought let's just release it as a knit-along, and that kind of is how that knit-along came to be, because I hadn't put sleeves on this yet. I think the body was done. I done the sleeves like that. I even made a mistake on the first sleeve that I did. I got the decrease rate wrong or something, and so I had to actually frog back a considerable portion. So I feel like I've actually made these sleeves 5 times, yeah, because the other garment too, right? I have personally chosen to follow the charts as they're laid out in the pattern, but as those of you who have the pattern will know, it comes with lots of different charts that you can mix and match, so you don't have to go for the sequence at all. So I have replacement charts for pretty much everything here. You can go with like Christmas gifts or snowmen or whatever, you can make it as kitsch or as elegant as you see fit. I just wanted to go with the sequence that I put in the pattern on both of these. So that's that. Those are the sleeves. It fits really, really well, but there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be trying it on in this heat. But yeah, it will look a lot better once blocked, and I've had this... It will look a lot better when it's blocked, and I can also close the windows and talk coherently. It's going to be good. So yeah, as you'll know, those of you who knit, I'm assuming that's most of you, if not all of you, blocking does wonders. So. Yep, it does wonders. How am I doing? I always get comments like, oh Ellie, we're not bothered by the noise. I'm like, I get that, I appreciate that, but I clearly am very easy to distract. So, oh well. But yes, Christmas in July. Christmas in July. I finished the other sleeves too. The only thing I've left to do with this cardigan is actually just to snip open the steek. Oh, I also haven't done the crocheting, so for those of you who are a little bit scared of steeking, yeah, there are lots of different ways of steeking, but it all comes down to the yarn choice in the end. If you're using rustic yarn like this, I'm using discontinued PT2, which is pretty much the same kind of as Roma Finul. I put lots of substitute yarns in the pattern, but as long as you're using these kind of Velcro kind of sticky yarns, like typical Norwegian or Shetland yarn or woolen spun sheep wool, not merino usually, and you can just cut through. But having a finishing technique like crochet steek thing, there are videos on that I link to in the pattern, or back stitches or sewing machine seams, all of that is fine too, but it really comes down to the yarn, unless you just want to use sewing machine seams, in which case you can pretty much steek anything. I started off with sewing machine seams, not that I can sew, I had to have my aunt help me with that, but that was kind of how I dabbled into it. But I'm happy to just cut through yarn like this, and I know it's not going to unravel, but I do like to put in a bit of crocheting just to kind of gather those fraying ends. They're not going to rip, they're not going to frog, they're not going to rip out, but they're going to fray a bit and not look so nice. So I kind of like to put the crochet reinforcement in, although I just think reinforcement is a little bit of a misnomer, but that's just my opinion. Some people think it does do that. It's got sleeves as well, all the sleeves. Can you imagine at the end of these? They're gonna look so much better when they're blocked, but at the end of these sleeves, I was going a little bit loopy, especially because of this like last reindeer pattern here. It both starts and finishes with that because of the chart sequence that I just decided to go with. I have done that one so many times now. It's just so many deer, which seems fitting given Skeindeer, so I guess it's all right in the end. Yeah, so I will have both a pullover and a cardigan. I just have, yeah, the sort of finishing techniques, yeah, left to do. That is weaving in the ends, blocking, and I'm gonna photograph myself wearing them when it's not baking hot, so I can have that for the pattern when I kind of do a, I don't know, re-release. I don't think much will change in the actual pattern. It was already finished when I put it up for sale. It was simply just the photography of my versions that were missing. You know, my test knitters had lots of lovely finished item photos for me to use, so you can see them as well. I share them both on Instagram and on Ravelry, so hopefully you can, you know, have a look-see there if you want. So yeah, the re-release will simply just be with better photographs. The pattern is already available as is. I just will have a bit more, you know, pizzazz to show off with, and I might when I release the pattern with the proper photos, also do a children's version. Have I said too much? I mean, I did do one for my nephew that I already left with him. I got some pretty neat photos of him wearing his version, so yeah. Also, if you didn't know already, these can be yoke only, so that's a version. I kind of want to make another one, honestly. I had one test knitter of mine do a grey version of this cardigan, but just with the colour work at the yoke in red, and I was like, I want another one now. Finished objects, both of them. Do I have anything else to say? Top down. Obviously, if you don't want to steek, the pullover is perfect option for that. That is a very simple construction. You could probably use any yarn for it. I do recommend my recommended yarns, obviously, sort of sport weight, leaning on fingering maybe. Just top down in the round. A little bit of short rows just to raise the upper neck and the back. Yeah, pretty straightforward. I think if you've done a top down yoke, you kind of know what you have in store. I don't know, I can't talk. Now that is not my only finished object, and I really wanted to have this pattern released and ready by the time I was going to talk to you guys about it, but I don't know that I will have it ready by the time I want to put this episode out there. If I do, I will have it written on screen, so just pay attention to the screen. I'm assuming you're going to be doing that because you want to be looking at the item that I have finished. I really want this to be a summer release, so it should really be out soon. I just actually haven't gotten around to send it to my tech editor yet, so that's why I don't want to put time pressure on it, because I'm not going to be selling a pattern that I have not had finished tech edited first. My goodness. Can you imagine the chaos? And I also do need to photograph it with myself, you know, wearing it. And again, it is actually really lovely for the lovely sort of warm, coolish summer evenings we're having now. Hence the name, Arctic Summer Eve Tea, which is a mouthful, but I like the sound of it. But I do also need the light to work in my favor, so that's kind of why I'm going to be waiting for slightly cooler days, even though it is perfect for summer evenings, given it is a t-shirt. And this is what it looks like. I'm not woven in the ends yet. Don't come for me. We'll just do this. All right. Yeah. So am I gonna wear it? Am I gonna do this to myself? Okay, it's very loose. That kind of helps, knowing that it's not gonna be very figure hugging. So it has a very kind of lovely kind of shoulder yoke fit, and it doesn't sit too snugly on the arms, but it doesn't sit too low either, so you have full mobility in your arms, and it increases in a subtle A-line shaping after the underarm. So it actually does have a lot of positive ease. You can see it's quite loose at my bust, even though had I been not increasing from here down, it would have had 0 ease, meaning it's the same measurements as my bust. But it does have this A-line increase here that just makes it sit lovely and loose around my waist. This is really lovely when I wear like a kind of waist skirt here, because I can lift up and you see the band. It's a really, really lovely fit. So that's that. I really need to weave in the ends. But yeah, this is the look. This is the look. I'm so pleased with this. I am just so pleased with it. So I'm going to take it off and gush about the yarn and tell you a little bit more about the construction as well. The yarn is amazing Lofoten wool. I got a lot of yarn from there, both that I purchased and was given to design with. I started designing with the stuff that I bought with no commitment, because that's how my brain works. Anyway, we're just going with it. I felt very inspired by this, what do we call it? There's a word for this. Barber pulled. So it has 2 plies. One is natural black sheep wool color, and the other one is in the white sheep wool but dyed blue. Again, using natural dyes. If you don't have this kind of yarn at hand, and you do want to have this sort of look, you could hold probably 2 strands of JC Vrenny lamb's wool or whole super soft together. I think that will work out, because that will make for about a sport weight, which is what Lofoten wool is. But my goodness, if you can get your mitts on Lofoten wool, yes, please do. It's so nice. I really enjoy knitting with this. The way it blocks out, and also I could feel the samples in the shop, and I can tell it was a lot softer than what I had when I was knitting, and I can also tell it was softening up after the gentle blocking that I've done. I'm really pleased with the neckline as well. It's very subtle. So what we have is actually on the end of each sort of t-shirt arm a very simple kind of plus chart, if you will, but it's a little bit more elaborate. It's more floral, I guess, down at the hem. I wanted to have one that was slightly bigger but still kind of echoes the same design feature. So these are folded hems, and they're actually really easy to sew on the inside, so I'm not too fussed if you choose to bind off on the inside or actually sew, pull a strand through, whatever your preferred method. But I will say it's a lot easier to do so in this design, because we are changing to white yarn here, both in the body and the sleeve. So when you look on the inside and you want to sew it on there, that is really easy to track on the same round, because it is in that contrast color as well. So I'm quite pleased with that. This is a contiguous construction. So if you have done my Pure Fuzz before, or Floof, or Cherry Puff, I think those are my 3 contiguous ones, you will be familiar with this method. It's a very simple, seamless kind of satin sleeve silhouette. Not quite, well, it is. That you just work in a way that could make you think of a raglan, but the way that the increases are placed means you're only increasing for the shoulders to begin with, and once you have your desired shoulder width, it's when you increase for the sleeves only. So you get this sort of straight down kind of body here, and then eventually you put in increases for the body side as well as the sleeves to get you know, your full bust size. And it's just a really lovely way of constructing, because you can get a very cool fit without too much finagling around setting in a sleeve and sewing and all that stuff that, I don't know, a lot of people really love, you know, assembling knitwear. I'm not one of those people. If I can find a way to do it seamlessly, I will. So contiguous is basically right up my alley there. The only seaming in this entire pattern is, you know, in addition to however you want to bind off the hems, is at the underarm. That's it. That's what you get from pretty much any top-down garment these days. Just seaming those stitches together. And I don't actually seam. I do a 3-needle bind off, so it's not really any sewing at all. Also, I am going to be showing, probably not on here if I can, I don't know. If it's not on here, I'll be linking to it on Instagram and Ravelry, that one of my testers did this in a single color, so you can see what it looks like with that as well. She also got to experiment with the neckline to do a slightly different one if you want to see what that looks like, if you want a slightly open one. Doing just a simple rib will close it up a bit more, and yeah, so kind of each to their own there, but that's the design basically. So if it wasn't obvious, I guess I'm just like assuming it is. I am just using a regular plain white yarn as the contrast color on the sleeves and hem, and obviously the neckline. So this is just a contrast against the bobble pooled yarn. That's all that's going on here, and I thought that was really cool to mix that up with color work, and we'll definitely be doing that again. And I actually have a lot of leftover yarn from this because I got 4 skeins and I barely used more than 2 of them. So 200 grams of yarn, that is. So it only comes to over 200 grams of yarn in my size because of the extra white wool that is used on the inside of the body and the sleeves. But yeah, Arctic Summer Eve Tea. Like I said, if I have released it by the time this episode goes up, I will put that on screen here. But if not, the best way to find out, and that would be amazing if you did, is to subscribe to my newsletter, because I then don't have to make a whole video, you know, talking about it when it's 37 degrees or whatever. We don't need to see that. Nobody needs to see that. So that would be the best way to do it. I always link to the newsletter down below in the description of the video, and it's pretty easy to subscribe to, and I promise I do not spam. I have probably not emailed enough this year at all. I probably send out 3 to 4 of the whole year, so I should probably be less shy about that. But yeah, that's the best way to find out about stuff right away, and also a good way to not miss out on the limited time discount codes that I tend to include as well. So, and I think honestly a lot of us are starting to prefer that over platforms like Instagram that are just not really cooperating these days. I mean, my posts are barely going out to anyone. It's a little bit demotivating, but it's also kind of demotivating to hear about all the time. So I choose to focus on the positive, which is, you know, my knitting mojo, which is fuming. Is that a good thing? It's on fire. It's good. It's happening. And my newsletter that I really do enjoy. But yeah, Arctic Summer Eve Tea. I'm just very pleased with it. If this is my only summer garment this year, then so be it, because it ticks off a lot of boxes for me. I find it incredibly just wearable. I love having it in my wardrobe. I really should like explore this kind of silhouette more, honestly, the sort of loose fit body. There's so many times that I think I want a fitted body, and I do like it. I find it's very, you know, it works with my style, but a lot of the time I want to grab it. I want to wear something a bit more loose and flowy. That's kind of what my mood is. Yeah, this is that. But yeah, it's very light, and also was a very quick knit. By the time my mojo kicked in and I was binding off, it was a very short period of time. I just, you know, felt like I wanted to keep on working on it. And I find that is one of the best parts about contiguous and a lot of similar type constructions, is because you get into a groove of each part of the pattern, but because the parts are also changing often enough, like going from shoulder to sleeve and body to just body but A-line, and then the hem, it's like none of these sections are so long that you get bored. You keep going. And so I find that anyway, that there's always something here to entertain me, if you will. And it's a really good push to finish, because it's not so varied that I need to focus so much that there's never really a good time to knit on it. But it's also not so samey same that I never feel like picking it up because I seem like I never finish one particular part of it. It's this really nice balance there that, yeah, that I had a lot of fun with and will be doing again. And yeah, moving on. Does anyone remember Widow's Kiss by Thea Coleman? Yes, I do knit from other designers as well, and I had a lot of fun with this. It's going to be my first cabled garment for me. I wanted one for myself, and I never seem to finish any of the ones that I have started, like the Stackhead pullover that I really, really want, or the Soda cardigan that I also really, really want, or the Knox sweater that I also really, really want. I don't seem to finish them, but this one I actually pulled through, and I am so close to done. But as you may remember, I had very little yarn left, and I look at this now and this is barely enough to bind off, and I haven't done the short rows yet, so I don't have enough yarn. Confirmed. This is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, famously a American yarn. A little bit difficult to get here, but actually not terribly difficult. Like I explained last time, they actually do help out with import tax, so it's not a huge faff, but it is still a little bit ridiculous to just order a 50-gram ball for that. But lucky for me, my neighbor slash I guess podcast watchers offered to bring a skein over coming back from America. So I happen to have a couple next door, well, down the road over there, that live locally, and I meet up with knitting groups and also watch this podcast, so hi. And yeah, they offered to bring over one skein of Knit Picks wool coming back from America, and so I'll be picking that up tomorrow, and I can actually finish this cable garment that I probably won't get to wear for another couple of months given the state of this climate here. But that's gonna be so satisfying to have this massive beastie bound off. It is over half a kilo heavy, but that's just how it is with full-on cable jumpers in my experience. I'm not really showing you a whole lot about the construction. There's really not a whole lot to add since last time. I've just been continuing on the same vein that I did earlier. I've now obviously made it into the rib pattern that is up at the neckline, so that's where there are some shorter shapings, I'm assuming, to raise the back of the neck, and then you bind off, I guess, and that's that. And I just need a bit of more yarn for that, so thank you so much for bringing that skein over for me. That is very, very kind. I'll see if there's a way I can maybe alternate it into this, given it's a different dye lot. I'm sure that will be fine. And then I'll have Widow's Kiss by Thea Coleman, good and ready, and probably going straight into a vacuum seal bag because I need to protect my knitwear from all the bugs that come out in this temperature. Don't even get me started. But yeah, I've been feeling very knitting mojo-y. Not so much sitting down and actually designing mojo-y though, but it did come to me when I had some acquisitions. I haven't really been anywhere, but I have received some stuff in the mail because my flatmate was over in America, which meant that she could bring back a order that I got to make for her parents' place from Lady Dye Yarn, who is overseas in America. And in case you don't know, if that's not obvious, import taxes from America to UK are not something I'm really super eager to pay. So if I can come up with any other way to get stuff from overseas here, I'll take it. And I got 5 skeins of this. This is the DK weight merino in the colorway Lord Featherington. I'm just gonna assume that's a Bridgerton reference. I haven't watched that yet. I do live under a rock. Yes, that is true. It only has imperial measurements, but it has 230 yards per skein, so I guess that's DK. I got 5 of these, but as you will notice, I'm only holding up one skein because I adore this green and have knitted up the first 2 because I was alternating skeins, and I have the other 2 now connected to this project. Evidence. So yeah, there were 5. There's now really just the one, and I am indeed designing with it. And that wasn't really the plan. I just bought this for myself, just, you know, to treat myself. I really wanted some Lady Dye yarn, and there was a shop update, blah blah blah. I came up with a design. I am not going to show you the design yet. It just seems a little bit too early given when it will be ready and whatever changes I may or may not make. But it's kind of vintagey. We got some puff shoulders, we got top-down construction. It's not quite contiguous. I kind of had to wing it a little bit. Maybe it feels something like Utra meets contiguous in construction. I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely in the vintage area. Think cherry puff, something in that vein. I can't show you how it's knitting up though, because I'm actually getting pretty close to done with the first sleeve. So it's a very roomy sleeve. It's a lot of, it's actually looking quite striped on camera. It really does not look striped at all in person. Just kind of tonal, like different shades of green, but yeah, my camera is quite bright, I guess. So yeah, There's a lot of ease in the sleeves, you know, puff here, and then it just sits kind of loosely around the arm until it sort of funnels in here. I've been working non-stop on this pullover, but yeah, feels a bit premature to talk about specifics of it, but I hopefully will have that ready by the end of summer. That seems like a good time for it and a good time frame for me to finish. We hope. I really just have one more sleeve left and then to finish up the body. And the body does have quite a nice texture on it that I really enjoy doing. So that's kind of just feels like it's knitting itself, which is always a good sign. As you'll know probably if you have, I don't know, watched this podcast for a while or knitted my patterns, is that I care a lot about the process. I mean, obviously I fit and outcome and what it looks like and stuff, but it really matters to me that the process of making the item is fun as well. And I guess I have a very particular sort of things that I like to make it seem fun, and I managed to find a way to make it, to minimize the amount of purling. I'm very, very pleased with that. Oh, since we're in acquisitions, this yarn actually came with a lot of goodies as well. I'm imagining it's because there were quite a few delays with it, which honestly didn't affect me at all because I couldn't get it before my flatmate could bring it to me anyway. But there has been, you know, supply delays and stuff because of COVID, and so I guess to make up for that, they added so many things in here. Wow, just keep making noises. Thank you, neighbors. There are sweets. Got some sweets. I'll be eating those. Some really cool stitch markers by A Needle Runs Through It. Hopefully you can see those. Damn, that actually kind of worked. This really nice measuring tape, which is actually a flat measuring tape, not one of those like kind of fabric-y ones. I think this one might hold up a lot longer than a lot of the other ones that I have, and should be easier to measure flat. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of a little bit more industrial, and it has this really cool logo on it or whatever that is. It reads Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, and a Fifth Element yarn. So this one's really cute. Also got a button from Crochet Luna, and there's an espresso blend in there, so that's not bad at all. I think that was everything. There was also a lot of stitch markers, which luckily were one of those safety pin bulb shaped stitch markers that I use all the time. I have a lot of fancy schmancy stitch markers around, but truth to be told, I used the bulb one, so that was really cool. That was my Lady Di yarn order. This is the Lady Di yarn logo. I actually didn't show you that, did I? So there. Awesome stuff. I mean, look at this color. It's like green, but it's like it's like it's got a bit of blue in it without being turquoise. I can't really put my finger on it, but I like it. It's good. We'll see what that sweater, what it turns into in the end. But yeah, stay tuned for that when the weather cools down, when we feel like doing garments again. I've also been knitting on this like super Norwegian looking garment thing. I was like, this is gonna be a vest, but I'm like, I need sleeves, and yeah, it's very Norway core. And I've also been working on this colorwork cardigan that you're gonna love when it comes out. I've been working on it for a lot of years. Like, my test knitters have waited for me an embarrassing amount of time, and I'm finally like this close to being done with it. So I think we're gonna have a lot of garments in store for autumn. Very excited. About time. Some of these I've looked forward to kind of tick off the list for quite some time. I tend to overextend myself when it comes to especially colorwork garments, and I forget that they do take longer, even for me. Yes. So I can actually get them done and wrapped up and photographed, and I'm just very excited. It feels like the kind of things that I should have designed a long while ago. So that's a bit of a nugget or a hint or something. I don't know. Other acquisitions that I have received actually from very generous Haya, who got in touch with me pretty much like they could read my mind or something when I'd been planning and thinking about a needle review, which is gonna come. I know I teased about that before, but it's like they knew, because they contacted me, and they didn't know, but you know, they contacted me and asked if I wanted to receive some of their needles, and I was like, you know, I kind of have everything from you guys, so we really struggled for a long time to come up with anything I actually don't have already, which I was like, you can send me more of the same, like I have got a lot of projects, don't worry about that. But in the end I got a lot of different needle tips and cables, and I've just put them all in one package now. They came in a lot of different packaging obviously, so all of this I'll be running through in my needle review when it comes. But I just wanted to give them a massive thank you for sending me all this stuff. There is one of those like plugs that you put on the end of your cable to make sure your stitches don't run off. There is these extension needles that you can turn your needle tips to straight needles instead of attaching them to a cable to knit in the round. You can have them as like kind of regular straight needles that people used to knit with back in the day, you know. I mean, people still do, but just to make sure you know what I'm talking about. And these bamboo needle tips, I haven't tried bamboo yet, so that's going to be exciting. I hope I get around to that. And they're all 4-inch tips, and I normally use 5-inch tips, but that means I don't have a lot of 4-inch tips, so now that's adding to my collection as well. In addition to that, they sent me this like notions thing, which if you do this, opens up and you can put stitch markers in here or things like that. And they sent me a bunch of these different stitch markers that look like kind of skeins of wool on a hoop that you can attach to a knitting. Look at my focus just obeying for a change. Okay. A little acquisition I got right there as well. So thank you so much, Hiya. I will say now that like whether people send me stuff or not is not going to affect my review when I do make it, but spoiler, Hiya does tend to come out pretty favorably for me. A little bit about this video, I shouldn't be promising too much because that will make me scared and not ever making and start putting it off, which may already have happened. I just want to talk about all the needles that I have worked with over the years as a knitter. I got my first interchangeable set exactly 10 years ago, pretty much. It was 2012, and since then it's just snowballed, and I've used a lot of different needles, and there's some that I no longer use and some I use more, and it's just kind of like stuff like that. Experiences with what breaks and what holds up and what's good for what. This whole review is going to be super subjective. It's going to be about my kind of feelings around knitting needles. I mean, at the end of the day, a knitting needle is a knitting needle. They're gonna knit, you know. But yeah, some personal reflections and kind of all things knitting needle that I care about in one place. But if there is anything you want me to particularly focus on in this video, you can pop that in the comment section down below, and I'll, you know, do my best to take that into account. I do actually remember talking to a bunch of you guys on the live stream on Instagram I did years ago that I did make notes from, so I will be taking that into account as well. I've done spreadsheets and everything, like this is already ready to go, I just haven't really done it yet. And I think that's my cue to wrap this up because the sun is leaving, which I'm gonna be enjoying because but yes, I guess I can squeeze in a little bit of personal life stuff at the end here for those of you who are interested in that sort of thing. But for those of you who are here only for the knitting, I mean, the knitting is really over right now. This is just personal life stuff. So yeah, I've been sick again. That was my reason for not recording anytime soon last time. And I'd had this like inflammation. I keep forgetting the difference between inflammation and infections. I really shouldn't be saying either. Yeah. And I got sick again. Was it COVID this time though? No. Was it like monkeypox or something? No. I got a cold. But I kept coughing. I coughed so much, but it was still not COVID. But my voice just did not sound like anything you guys ever want to listen to. Trust me on that. So that happened. That kind of took a bit of time off my, you know, I was going to say my life. That sounded very dramatic. Of what I could have done. But what I have done in the rest of my life is a little bit of decluttering. I am starting to think maybe doing a very, very, very big yarn de-stash. A lot of times I really just got rid of things that I have no plans for and things like that. This one is looking like a, let's be real, I've had this yarn for a long time, I really love it, but I haven't done anything with it yet kind of de-stash. So that's, if I do this, it's going to be a lot of really good stuff. I don't want anyone to be offended if I sell something that they really, really like or that they even made or even sent me. It's just, I've not made anything with it yet. And I've got to be so brutal about that. Even my whole stash, you guys know how I feel about whole super soft, but I had a lot of it for a very long time. I might do a big batch sale of it. I don't know yet. We'll see how I do it. I'm even trying to figure out what's the best platform for it. I've used Instagram for it in the past, but that platform is really not working in my favor anymore. And sometimes people bid on a lot of things and they don't really mean to follow through, and that's not really great. But I also don't like eBay for it because they charge so much, and then, you know, it's just tough to find out. Same thing with Etsy. I gotta think about that, but it might just still be Instagram. I don't know. Another thing I've been doing on the decluttering sort of side of things is going through a lot of my own clothes. I actually don't have a ton of clothes. I'm not a big clothes shopper. I struggle to find stuff that I like to wear and feel like I look good in. A lot of that stuff, I mean, don't get me started on how a lot of size inclusive shops just scale up their clothes so that the shoulder width of larger garments is like out here when it should be sitting at the same place where your bra straps are. They're just like here. I'm like, I wanted a fitted garment, not a drop shoulder one, but the small sizes still get the fit. That's good. It's just very frustrating. So I have a hard time getting stuff that I like. So when I buy stuff I like, you know, it's precious, it's rare, it's few items. But it has built up over the years after all, and I have a lot of really gorgeous stuff that I do want to keep, but either, I gotta be honest, I just don't wear it a lot, or it's no longer my size. It's either too big or too small, because I have fluctuated sizes in all directions the past decade, and so it's time to let it go and go to a better place. So if anyone's interested in anything from my wardrobe, I have put it up on Vinted. I am Eliknit there, Eliknits. I don't know if you can look up people that way, but you can. There are my clothes. There are 38 items, mostly dresses, some skirts, any size from size small to 3XL, I think, if not 4XL. I really got the whole scale there, just in case if anyone wanted that. I'm actually going to ship off a dress that I sold today, and it's making me sad because that dress sits. Like, it sits. It looks so good on me, but I can't exhale in it. You know, it really is quite snug around the waist, and I just never wear it, even though it looks... Oh, it's going to be a tough one to part with. It's a very me dress. So yeah, decluttering is happening. Kind of have to do that when you live in such a small space that I do. I do really only have this room to have my personal belongings. I do obviously also share living room and kitchen bathroom with my flatmate. But, you know, I can't have all my stuff around there all the time. Although I do keep most of my knitting magazines there because we are both knitters. So, you know, how lucky am I? But yeah, that's what's happening in my personal life. If anyone's wondering how the journaling's going, I do famously not stick to journaling. I put a pen in here. That's kind of weird. But I thought I'd talk a little bit about it anyway. Because I have fallen behind on some of the things that I stuck to earlier. Like I tried to do the daily timeline thing. And when I realized I was no longer doing it, maybe I was bored of it. Maybe it didn't fit my lifestyle, way that I changed. It's summer, you know, I'm a bit more social, a little bit more all over the place. So I had to again change my strategy. And that's what I love about this bullet journaling thing, is that I can just do that because the next pages are blank. So whatever I was doing before, I can just change it up. I know. She's discovered a journal. Great. Amazing. But most journals I tried in the past have already had set up structure for me. And so even if I liked it to begin with, if I change, the journal doesn't. So this one does, and it's kind of cool. So I started making these kind of categorized to-do lists instead of shifting my to-do list day after day after day because it wasn't working anymore. This is not working either. I'm still not doing things. That's the challenge for me. It's just, how do I do things? How do I start? How do I motivate myself? Let's not go into that. Like, I'm in therapy for this stuff. So it's you know, oh God, this got very personal very quickly. Let's change to something else personal. I decided to explore cycle tracking. And yeah, I'm not talking about bicycles. I'm talking about the womb cycle, the uterus stuff. If you're not here for that, you could just go and watch something else. I already told you this is not about knitting anymore. A lot of people have made better videos and stuff about that kind of stuff than I have on YouTube, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I will say what I've actually benefited from it. So what I do is I just measure my basal body temperature every morning and see how my body temperature goes up at ovulation. And what I found out right after ovulation, when that's over, my goodness, does my mood crash. I started tracking my mood, and I'm someone who has like a very stable mood. Mood-wise, emotion-wise, I'm usually pretty steady. I usually rank this as either good, stable, no focus, stress / meh, or bad. It's usually somewhere between good and stable for me every day, except once ovulation's over, mood crashes, and I feel really sad for like a day or two. Then it goes kind of back up again, and then 2 days or so before my period, it crashes again, and I feel pretty bad. And I've seen this and I repeat a few times. I'm like, oh, well, that's useful to know, because if you feel sad, you start looking for all the reasons that you're already sad and you feel extra sad about them. It's like good to know, to see that that's kind of just a cycle talking, but also to realize that if I'm going to be a little hippy-dippy about this stuff, it's my cycle kind of prompting me to actually assess upsetting things in my life. I'm like, huh, because I could have just let that go and just like live with it instead of this kind of hormonal shenanigans in me just kind of going, hey, care about this stuff, it's upsetting you, care about it now, kind of. I kind of come to appreciate that, but I'm also looking to maybe change some of it because I'm not into this whole dip in my mood every month, twice a month, and it's been really cool to track. And I think a lot of people are looking for analog ways of tracking their cycles these days for reasons I really don't want to talk about on here, but I totally understand, and you know, solidarity. That's a way of doing that I can actually recommend. I think it's really fun even to put in pen and pencil and make the tables and everything. I'm sure if you type it into YouTube search, you'll probably find the same videos that I looked at. Bullet journal, cycle tracking and that sort of thing. So that's the latest in my bullet journal stuff, explorations. I think I'm just over halfway through it, and we're just about over halfway through the year, so that's working out as well. And yeah, I think now I am ready to wrap up this video. So thank you so much for watching. Click like and subscribe, I guess, what people do on YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter so that you can find out more about the Arctic Summer Eve tea that I hope to have out soon. There's been a lot of patterns that I've just been like this close to ready to release, and I've just been procrastinating. Clearly, the things I need to deal with, but at least I got around to record this podcast episode today before the big heat wave hits us all. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.